Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter when the ship starts sailing. And of course, we're not talking about Disney cruising because it just doesn't seem to be happening these days right now. But we're going to turn our focus to Run Disney. And to do that, we would need to bring in our Run Disney expert over on Mouse Gen. How are you doing today, Lake?
I am doing great, and I am very excited for this episode because this is something Run Disney related that I actually don't know a whole lot about, and it's something that I haven't gotten to experience yet.
Well, I was kind of thinking about it. Christy is busy doing her lawyer stuff, and Chris and his family are off on a family vacation. So I needed to reach out to you anyways for a co-hosting. I'm feeling like Oprah. Like Oprah gives away cars. You get a car, you get a car, and I'm just doing that with co-hosts now. You could be a co-host, you could be a co-host. So thanks for co-hosting with me tonight, Blake.
Absolutely, I did join the festivity, and I made a drink.
Oh, nice.
I might be alone here.
Too.
Yeah, it's in a Trader Sam's mug, but it's actually the Tiki rum that you can get at Trader Sam's. It's pineapple juice, cream of coconut, and then it's shaken up with cinnamon on top.
Nice. Well, I wasn't sure since we're talking about Run Disney whether I could do that or not. I was going to try to stay a little healthy, and I went with my Pellegrino tonight. But I got to drive my son to soccer, so that's my excuse as well. Well, let's jump into it. We are going to talk about a super fun topic, but before we tell you what that is, although you probably know already from the title of the podcast, but I'd like to welcome to the show all the way from Canada up in Toronto, Andrea. How are you doing today, Andrea?
I'm good, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for reaching out and offering to share your experience tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. It seems like it was a while ago, but it's been fun kind of remembering all the memories from my trip.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk a little Run Disney, and specifically, where did you run this race?
I went to Disneyland Paris and did the 36K challenge there.
Oh, so you know what? I didn't add up. That's a lot of running. I didn't add that up at all ahead of time. Before we jump into that, though, let's kind of delve into what's your Disney background, your Run Disney background. And we talked a little bit ahead of time about Disney cruising. That hasn't worked out yet. But what's your Disney background and how did you get into Run Disney?
So I went to Disney World a few times when I was a kid with my family. And I was kind of always that kid who took the Disney planning books out of the library and poured over them, planning fantasy trips to Disney World. And I kind of just didn't really think about going back for the longest time. And I started running in 2010. And at some point, I heard about Run Disney and the Goofy Challenge. And I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I was diagnosed in 2008. And I decided that in 2018, to mark 10 years of living with rheumatoid arthritis, that I was going to do, at that point, it was only the Goofy Challenge available. So I made that as a goal for myself. When I finally came time to register, Dopey was a thing. So I'm like, okay, let's just go and do the Dopey Challenge. So that was supposed to be my one and done Run Disney event. I went back of April of 2018 and ran the Star Wars races, became an annual pass holder. And then in November of that year, went back for Wine and Dine, became a DVC member. And in 2019, I decided let's just run all the Run Disney races that year.
So you really got yourself roped in there. Now I have a follow-up question. Was Dopey also your first marathon?
No, that was my third marathon.
What were your other two?
So my first marathon I ran in 2014 in Ottawa. And then in 2017, as part of actually my training for Dopey, I ran the New York City Marathon.
Oh, also some very cool marathons there, but that's awesome. I have yet to do Dopey, and I'm a little bit hesitant about it because it's not really a weekend where you can want to run something fast. You kind of just got to suffer through it.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the first time I did Dopey, I kind of wasn't in that mindset and I kind of went out a little too fast. And after the half marathon, kind of regretted some of my choices. But now it's just kind of you just got to take it one day at a time and look at it as it's a 4-day event. It's not 4 separate races.
So that's pretty cool that you actually got to run every single race in 2019. That's a lot of miles. But before we talk about Run Disney, how is the Run Disney event compared to the race you ran in Ottawa and then also the New York City Marathon? What are some of your distinctions between the different races?
I feel like we've definitely run Disney. There's more people, myself included, who just do run Disney for fun and not for time, which is definitely for me. And I'm like, I want to have as much fun on the course as possible. Whereas like both Ottawa and New York, I ran for time. It's just it's a more welcoming atmosphere, definitely for either slower runners or first timers. It's very encouraging, and there's so many people out that just kind of want to have a good time on the race. And I mean, some people take it seriously, and I'm like, that's great. It's kind of not why I'm out there. But so I think it's a really welcoming environment, and it's not as competitive, I think, as some other races. And then you're not going to get characters anywhere else either. So it's an added bonus.
Like I know you've done some races around the Florida area. Have you run some of the bigger races around the country like that?
I have not. Obviously, last year was kind of my first marathon, and I was planning on doing marathon weekend this year and trying super hard to try to qualify for possibly Boston, New York, all of that. But everything was canceled. And then now I'm just like not a very good runner at this point, been super inconsistent. But I would like to eventually travel around and do some of those cool races. I want to do some like cool, like ultra marathon stuff too. I think that'd be fun.
Now you're moving way beyond my realm. I think I could do 26.2, but I think going past that with the ultra marathons might be a little tough. I just have one more question for you, Andrea. With the New York City Marathon, being outside of the US, was it harder to get into, do you think? Do you know? Because I know my brother and his husband have tried a lot of different times. He finally got in the half, but they still haven't got in the full.
I think it's actually a little bit easier because I'm in the international category, because I think they have like the three, like people from New York, people from the States, and international. So I think it was a little easier. I got in on my first try through the lottery. So I've had pretty decent luck though in race lotteries. I'm so happy with that.
Let's turn our focus over to Paris in Europe. Had you traveled over to France and to Europe before?
Yeah, I went to Paris in 2004. I was part of like a group tour at that point, and then group tour, and then a little bit on my own. So I'd been there before, but it was quite a while ago. But I'm pretty well traveled, so going to Paris this time wasn't kind of totally out of my comfort zone.
So when you booked this event, and I won't get into the registration, but when you booked this event, did you do it all yourself, or was there a package to book, or how did that work?
I booked a package, and I did it myself through Disneyland Paris website. I think I booked it about January of 2019, so 9 months in advance. So I just booked everything all at once: hotel, park tickets, races, everything in one go.
Did you get any sense as far as like whether it sells out, or is it? I know back in the day, you really had to be on it to get on a lot of Run Disney events. It's sort of changing again. It seems like it's been tougher. Some of the virtual stuff is sold out faster. But did you get a sense as far as having to be on it right away to be able to run in Paris?
To do the packages, not so much. I think they give a really big window for people who are booking the packages either themselves or through travel agents. But they do offer a bib-only sale later. I can't remember at what point that was, and it's extremely limited, and that's a lot more stressful in terms of getting the bib, and it sells out as well.
Okay, and then the last question: as a DVC member, I know that in the past, you've been able to book ahead of time. They've had limited slots and annual pass holders as well to get into some of the Run Disney events. Did that help you at all with Paris, or do you know?
No, none of that helped. No.
Okay.
Yeah, so you talked about how you booked a package, and you said you just did that through Run Disney Paris. Could you talk more about like anything else weird you had to do, maybe compared to signing up for a Run Disney race in the States, and kind of what you had to do there?
Yeah, so even though I booked the package in January, you didn't get your link to actually fully register for the rest of the race until August. So about a month before the actual races. So they send you a link in the email, and you go on, and you have to, you fill all your normal race information, age, shirt size. You submit proof of time like you do at Disney World in Florida. However, it's only if you're running 2 hours, 15 minutes or less for the half. Otherwise, you're just putting in your estimated time. You also had to provide a note from a signed letter from a doctor saying that you are physically, medically cleared to run the half marathon. And this is I believe that this is a law in terms of in Paris for any event that is competitive. So It was only needed for the half, but because of that, the 5K and the 10K, they're not timed, and you don't need to submit the letter for those. And then for myself, because I was doing the Castle to Chateau challenge, I also had to provide my certificate for running marathon weekend in Florida.
Where did you end up staying for the race?
I stayed at Sequoia Lodge, which is one of the Disneyland Paris hotels, and it's kind of like their version of the Wilderness Lodge.
Why don't we talk about traveling there? I'm going to assume that you took a plane over there. How many days before did you get in? What was kind of that like pre-prep timing looking like?
And so I left Toronto on Wednesday night, flew overnight, got to Paris on the Thursday morning. So Thursday evening was when the expo started and the races started the next day. And then I ended up staying in Paris until Monday afternoon. So it was like a shorter trip, but I felt I got to see most of Disneyland Paris.
Hey, Andrew, can we backtrack a little bit? And probably should have started off with this, but what were the distances that you ran over this? And then could you tell everybody what the Chateau de Castle challenge is?
It was 5K on Friday night, 10K on Saturday morning, and then the half marathon on Sunday morning. So if you run the 10K and the half marathon, that's a 31K challenge. And then if you run all three races, it's a 36K challenge. Then if you can complete either a half marathon or a full marathon in Disney World, and then you go to Paris, you get the Castle to Chateau medal as well.
So you got 5 medals out of this then, right? Did I do my math right?
6.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a lot of swag.
That Castle to Chateau medal is super cool too. And probably one of the like hardest to get, honestly.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite medals. That's my dopey medals. They're up there.
And how about the Sequoia Lodge? Have you stayed at Wilderness Lodge before? Was it similar to Wilderness Lodge?
It's definitely not as elaborate. It's got the same kind of feel. It's very warm, lots of wood, and there's all these pine trees around the hotel. It definitely doesn't match the lobby at Wilderness Lodge. And I would kind of put it more as it's not quite at the deluxe level of the Disney World hotels, but it's pretty nice though. Nice room, and they had some really good restaurants. And nice thing about Disneyland Paris is like everything's in walking distance.
Kind of like a moderate maybe hotel that we'd be used to a little bit more, or
I would say so. Kind of maybe like the Coronado Towers, maybe.
Okay.
So usually at a Run Disney race, kind of your first like big hype is getting checked in and going to the expo. And when you do a Run Disney race in Florida, it's a whole big thing at ESPN. You're running around the multiple buildings and waiting in all sorts of lines. What was it like at Disneyland Paris?
So the expo started on Thursday afternoon in a kind of a big tented area. We're in between the hotels and downtown Disney. I'm used to the Run Disney expos in Florida. This was a lot smaller. Still a lot of standing in line. So go in, do the normal check in, get your race bibs. They take your photo if you're doing the challenges. If you're doing the Castle to Chateau, you also got a wristband to identify yourself for that. And then they had a very small merchandise area. So it's definitely nothing like the Run Disney Florida expos. I think there was about maybe 10 pieces of merchandise. There's no vendors, none of the sampling. So it's definitely not as much smaller scale. But it was also nice because you could get through it really quickly.
The expo at Florida Run Disney races tend to be kind of at least half a day events sometimes, especially if you're going to get there right when they open to try to get merch. Was there any like merchandise though, even though you said it was limited, that caught your eye and made its way into your bag?
I was determined to get a Castle to Chateau t-shirt, so I did purchase that, as well as I have a Run Disney Paris jacket, which I'm pretty happy about. And of course, you always get the shirts and everything with your registration.
How was the quality of the shirts? Is it kind of the same shirts that they use at Walt Disney World, or was it a little bit different?
It's very similar. However, it's all European sizing. So there's a lot of people who would order their normal size that they would get in Disney World and got there and had to exchange their shirts. Like I normally get a size large at Disney World. I had to get a double XL in Paris. And at one point, they gave me the men's shirt just by accident, so I had to exchange it. But they're really nice, very colorful, and you get. I think I got 5 shirts, so you come home with quite a stack of new clothes.
Well, let's kind of turn to the race day itself. So it sounded like, well, the other thing that we haven't touched on is what time of year is this race usually run? I think it's in the fall, right?
Yeah, it was in mid-September.
Okay. So let's go to the race day itself. And you talked about having the 5K at night, and then you get right back up in the morning and run the 10K. What was race day like, getting out to the starting line, and how was the check-in process, and how did that compare to Disney World?
Well, being used to Disney World, I got to the starting area for the 5K about 2.5 hours early, and there was nobody else there.
They're still putting up the stage and everything else.
Pretty much. It was pretty quiet. So just kind of wandered around the start area. One of the nice things with the starting area for Disneyland Paris is everything's at where the expo is. So you can just go in to that building and do your bag check, and you can wait inside if it's a little bit cooler. But after finally people started coming in, I think I got into the Start Corral about half an hour before the actual race started. So it's definitely a much more casual experience than at Disney World. And then they had announcers, and they were doing a warm up. The theme for the 36K challenge was Aladdin. So the genie was out in the mornings, leading us all in the warm up. One morning we had a Frozen sing along in the Start Corrals.
I like that, keeping everybody's spirits up. So then you guys take off on the 5K. Was it similar, or how would you characterize the 5K like in Disney World?
The 5Ks in Disney World are kind of controlled chaos for the most part. They only ever do 3 waves. And it's not timed, and they just kind of pull you up, and they still go through like the ready go, but they're quite much larger waves compared to what you'll see in the longer races where you have to do proof of time. So kind of controlled chaos is the best example I could give.
Did that kind of compare to Paris, Andrea?
Yeah, controlled chaos is definitely a good way to put it, because the only corral that required proof of time was a corral. So after that, it's a mix of all paces. And I think to the most part was randomly selected as who was in which corral. They did do the mini waves. They were going off relatively regularly, and they had the fireworks at the beginning of each race. Yeah, it was pretty chaotic though.
I do want to backtrack real quick though. You said you were able to walk to the race in the morning though, right?
Yeah, it was 10-minute walk from my hotel.
That is awesome. That is one thing that I wish we could do. Well, we do have some races where you can do that, but you have to stay at specific resorts. And then follow-up question, you said you arrived super early. Did they have like any pamphlets or anything, kind of like they do at our Run Disney events, where they say, hey, make sure you're, at the buses by 3:30 a.m. so that you get to the starting line by 4 a.m. and then you make a mile walk and you're finally there before 5:30, hopefully?
It was pretty much just being in your corral by half an hour before the race.
I kind of like that.
It was a nice change because it was definitely easier. You didn't have to worry about walking a mile, and the porta potties are just right there, and you sleep in a bit.
Any other backtrack on that, Lake?
Well, you did mention the porta potties. How was that situation, since we all love to talk about that?
The porta potties themselves are very well organized. One of the things I've never encountered before, though, in a race in either the States or Canada was, I'm going to call them troughs for men. They were open air. That was a little bit unusual.
Well, I thought
no
you were
lineups, though.
I thought you were going to say that you got there and you had to put some euros in to use it, but I'm glad that wasn't the case.
Not quite.
Any other questions about the porta potties, Lake?
No, I'm good.
No, those are good questions, because that's a serious thing about running, isn't it?
All the time. Let's talk about the courses themselves. Obviously, the lure of Run Disney races, no matter where you are, is that you get to run through the parks and that there's characters. Typically, you get to even run through some of the out of park areas like resorts and, of course, parking lots. Could you talk about kind of each race and the parks, and maybe like some highlight characters or things you saw from them?
Yeah, so the 5K started just outside of downtown Disney and ran through the shopping area. And we went into Disneyland Park and ran through Adventureland. Then we went out into the backstage area, and they had some characters out there and some special props as well for photo opportunities. And then you ran in through the studios, and all the finish lines for all 3 races are in the studios. Lots of characters out. The theme for the 5K was animals. So there was a lot of different animals out, animal characters out. So I saw like Coda, the bear from, I'm blanking on the name of that movie.
Brother Bear.
Brother Bear, thank you. And they had Remy from Ratatouille. I was very much looking forward to getting a photo with the 3 Aristocat kittens. I missed them though because they were trading off with Remy.
No.
The character lineups are really long though compared to what you would get at Disney World, so I didn't stop very much, unfortunately. And at Disney World, I'm kind of person who will stop for 10 characters during a half marathon. The 10K, we ran, everything kind of started in the same place, and we ran through Disneyland Park. We did run up Main Street and ran through Fantasyland. One of the fun things with Disneyland Paris 10Ks, where you ran through the castle. You don't do during 10Ks at Disney World. And went backstage and then through Disneyland Studios again. Half marathon was kind of the same sort of deal as I started in Disneyland Park. And then we spent a lot of time on the highway and running through one of the neighboring towns. The half marathon course, though, finished running through all the resorts. So it was nice because there were spectators out and you were able to see some of your family because it was easy for them just to come out of the hotel. And so we ran all the way around the hotels and then again finished in Disneyland Studios. It's a lot of park time in the races, especially for the 5K and the 10K, which is really nice.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, especially the fact that you get to go through the castle and the 10K. And you said the parks or the races all finish inside the Studios park?
Yeah, there was it was just towards one of the backstage exits, I believe. But there was the Lights Motor Action stunt show that used to be at Hollywood Studios. They still have it in Paris though, and that was kind of one of the last things you ran through is their actual stunt show stage, and you get they would have a video of you running through it up on the screen. Very big epic music. So that was the last part of the courses, and you would run through that, then finish up in the studios.
Very cool. That's awesome. That's definitely something a little bit different from finishing in the parking lot. How was like the post-race vibe though?
There wasn't much of one. It was a little bit, you got your medal. They had food out. It was a little bit different from Disney World though, because you had to, especially for the challenge medals, you had to walk back to the expo to get your challenge medals afterwards. So it's not like when you finish one of the challenges at Disney World, they just keep putting medals on you. You had to walk back to the expo to pick everything up. So it was about 15-minute walk after running 3 races. So that was not as much fun. And they didn't have as much of the characters as they do at Disney World. So you kind of finished, there was not really any photo opportunities other than just a photo of your medal.
So it sounds like post-race might have been maybe a little bit I don't want to say disappointing, but a little bit of maybe a letdown considering you have to like go and walk to finish getting your medals and there's not really like post-op pics.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that, it's especially when you just want to get the challenge medal at the end of it all and to have to walk 15 minutes. And at Disney World, I'm a big fan of getting my post-run beer. And that was not an option either at Disneyland Paris.
Well, that's too bad. So even once you picked up your medal back at the expo area, they didn't have anything like that going on.
They had some like backdrops that you can get your photo taken in front of. There's no characters though, but I got my photo taken in front of like the Castle de Chateau sign.
I want to go back just one more time to the race itself. How was, the half marathon being kind of the big race of the weekend? How was the crowd for the half marathon? Was it kind of similar where people showed up late, getting into the corrals? And then how did it work along the course? Did the crowd spread out quite a bit as you were running? Some
of the areas, they were pretty congested. There were some areas that you could only run 2 runners across. And so if you were in a slower area of the pack that you'd be walking, there was no way around it. But when we were on the highway, it was very opened up. Also, no spectators in that area at all. They had a couple of marching bands. So there's definitely areas of congestion. The start lines for each of the races were pretty congested as well. All the races started, you went straight and then had to immediately make a right-hand turn. So that was a little bit chaotic during the courses.
Yeah, that's a tough way to start it. If you get these huge waves of people going and all of a sudden, everybody's going to make that right-hand turn to start. How about food, water, and that stuff along the course? Did they have that available?
Yeah, they had bananas and water stations. I don't recall getting any sort of gels or anything during the half. It was mostly just bananas. I think they had orange slices as well, and Gatorade. It was just the usual, nothing fancy.
So you ran all the different courses, including the Paris courses and anything you've run over here for Run Disney. Do you have a favorite course out of all of those?
I like the half marathon course for wine that was used for Wine and Dine weekends
and Star Wars.
So starting in Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, or starting parking lot, Magic. I'm going to start
Magic Kingdom. So it's Magic Kingdom parking lot to Animal Kingdom to Hollywood to Epcot. That's the right answer.
That's my favorite course.
Did you have a favorite course on the weekend then here in Paris?
I really liked the 10K course. You got a lot of park time. It was nice to spend some time running around in Disneyland Park and then a little bit of backstage time and then ending in the studio. So it didn't feel like they were adding in highway miles at all.
Did they have the rides running? Could you ride a ride or was the park open? No, when you guys were running. Okay. And then I guess the last question I got about it is we kind of touched on it a little bit, but you got 6 medals out of. How are the medals compared to the ones from Walt Disney World?
Oh, they're gorgeous. They're some of my favorite medals, actually, because they're different from Disney World. And I like that you got a medal for doing all 3 races. Whereas Disney World, you run the 5K, you're not getting anything extra unless you're doing Dopey. So it was kind of a nice little bonus there.
So you mentioned kind of comparing park time to highway time, specifically for the halves for Run Disney events. This is typically pretty rough. If you're going to run the half marathon during either Princess Weekend or Marathon Weekend, which are the largest 2 weekends, you're actually going to be running about 8 or 9 miles of your 13-mile run on the highway or parking lots, if not more. What was kind of that ratio like for the half marathon for this race?
If you counted running through the resorts as non-highway, which I would because they're really themed and it was a lot of fun, I would say 2/3 is in park, 1/3 out of park.
That's pretty cool. So probably only like 4 or 5 miles or so out of park.
Yeah, and even when the part you're out of park, you're in the Paris countryside, so it's all idyllic farmland, and then you're running through this cute little town and their park. So that part was still a lot of fun.
That's really cool.
As fast as you are, Blake, I would think that you would love running along those highways so you can just turn it on. I mean, when you're running through the parks, you're turning left and turning right. There's all these distractions and everything like that. I would think that you would just love those highways.
I do run my faster times on that course. That course holds like all of my PRs I've ever had. But as for scenic courses, I prefer the other one.
I'm giving you a hard time because I know you're super fast. So any other thoughts, like, about this weekend to ask Andrea? I want to touch and see if you went to the park still too. And I got a couple other questions, but any other thoughts about just the race aspect of the weekend itself?
Was there anything else compared to a Run Disney event here that either stuck out to you or maybe caught you off guard as for differences?
Yeah, I think a PhotoPass is very different in Disneyland Paris. You can buy PhotoPass for the races, and you can also get it to include your time in the parks as well. The photos took a lot longer to show up, though, after the race. I think I got them about maybe 3 weeks after the race.
Wow.
The other thing that was a little bit different is in Orlando, if you're running through the parks and you see a PhotoPass photographer, most of the time people just wave at the photographer and smile, maybe do a jump shot and keep running. People were lining up in front of the photographers, which was a little bit different than I'm used to. So there'd be lineups just to take your photo on the course.
That's like, that almost doesn't make sense, because if everyone were just to run by it, like, they would have just gotten their photo anyways.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit odd, but after a while, it's just kind of like, okay, everyone else is doing it. And if I want any photos, I'm going to have to do it too.
Yeah.
which you want the photos because that's like one of the cool parts about a Run Disney event is the photo support is amazing.
Yeah, you definitely did not get as many photos in Paris as we do in Orlando.
Was there a like through the castle kind of shot like you get when you go through the castle here?
There was a photo pass like at the end of the castle, so you could do the one standing in front of it, but I don't recall there being any that were there capturing you as you ran through the castle, and if they were, they didn't get me.
What was the makeup of the people running this? Was it mostly Europeans? Were there a lot of Americans? And I guess we didn't really ask, did you run this by yourself or did you go over with a group?
I ran by myself. I did have two friends that were also friends from home that were doing the Disneyland Paris races. So we would meet up in the corrals, but we didn't run together.
What do you think the makeup of like most of the people running? Was it mostly Europeans running the race, would you say?
I would say it was probably 2/3 European, but there were a lot of people from North America. And just because the amount of events I've done in Disney World, I start to recognize people, and definitely I saw some of the same faces there, and as I see at the regular Run Disney weekends.
I think that's what, and I think Lake, I know Lake will agree with me. At least I think you will, Lake. I think that's what makes Run Disney such a great event is once you get to know some of the people that come back year after year. It's a great community of people, very supportive, as you said, Andrea. And that's probably one of my favorite parts about Run Disney. How about you, Lake?
Yeah, I really couldn't say it better. That's absolutely one of my favorite parts. I have so many friends now that I just met in the corrals, just being like, oh, hey, good morning. What's your name? Like, and now it's all people who I meet up with every single race. And we basically do all of our catch up in the corrals pre-race. And occasionally, we'll meet up after in the parks or whatnot. But I mean, that's my favorite thing about Run Disney. And that's definitely, I mean, yes, I miss running the races and running through the parks, but I miss the people that I haven't seen in over a year now for sure.
In my running group, I'm part of the Be Our Guest podcast, Lizards. I don't know if I can say that on your podcast.
Of course you can.
So I'm part of the Be Our Guest podcast, Lizards, and they've just become like some of my favorite people in the world. I have a lizard tattooed on my arm. That's how much these people mean to me. And I've met them because I'm going to Run Disney events. I miss them. I've not been able to see them since January of 2020.
Well, hopefully that's going to change soon. And that's special to have that tattoo like that too. And the makeup of the people. Like I said, I don't remember around such a positive experience as doing the Run Disney events. I guess I've got kind of a follow-up question, and we can always go back on if you think about anything else about the races, but have you done any of the virtual race series that they've done? And I know that doesn't really match, being there with people in general, but what are your thoughts on the virtual series?
Well, they don't ship medals to Canada, so that's a bit of a complaint for me. But last summer, one of my friends, my Run Disney friends, actually, she got the medals mailed them to her house, and she shipped them to me. So I was able to. I actually did the virtuals in place of Marathon Weekend this year. So I was a little bit late on it, but it was kind of nice when I'm like, I should be running Dopey right now, but I'm just going to do these 5Ks instead and get some nice medals. I don't think I'm going to do them this year, though. It's a bit much.
Have your thoughts changed on those at all, Lake?
We did the virtual Princess 5K. The medal and the shirt are still like rolled up in the original box. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a cool medal. Don't get me wrong. For what they're charging for it, I want to be there. Like I want to be there running through the parks. So we took the refund on all of it for this year.
We ended up doing the half just because I wanted to keep the streak going. Not that my streak is as long as yours, Lake, but I just wanted to keep that Run Disney race kind of streak going. So we did the virtual half this year for Marathon Week, and I'm hoping that next year it's gonna go. So we'll see. Let's kind of go backtrack a little bit. Did you get to spend any time at Disneyland Paris in the parks itself? And what were some highlights that maybe you have there? Just some overall thoughts.
I spent about every single day I went to the parks. So I went to my favorite highlights are definitely Crush's Coaster in the studios. That's such a fun roller coaster. It's so simple, but it's just so much fun. It's a small world in Paris. It's beautiful. And I love It's a Small World. I'm one of those people who will ride it repeatedly. And so it was nice to see it a little bit different. Also, Phantom Manor at Disneyland Paris, it's so well themed, and it's all of Adventureland is kind of in the same sort of theme. So there's tie-ins with Phantom Manor and Big Thunder Mountain. So that's pretty cool. And there's a storyline all the way through that ride. I mean, it's there in Florida, but it's not as apparent.
Did you get to ride Big Thunder?
Yes, I went on Big Thunder multiple times. I think I went on 3 times in a row because the lineup was pretty short. And that's a lot of fun because it's on an island in the middle of the little lagoon there. And you go underneath the water and then you pop up on the mountain.
Like, have you been to Disneyland Paris? We haven't been there yet, but I think Phantom Manor and Big Thunder are 2 like big in our list.
We have our one of our Run Disney friends who I met like literally running a race one time. And now he's like one of my best friends. We keep saying we're going to plan a Paris trip together. And obviously that has yet to happen now.
Hopefully someday you see it. And I've heard that Crush's Coaster, you're like about the 3rd or 4th person I've heard talk about Disneyland Paris that said that Crush's Coaster is just amazing.
Everyone talks about this coaster and they're always like, it's a really simple coaster, but it's the best thing we rode.
I think it's just fun because it's spinning you around and you go outside for a bit and it just got some good animation going as well. And it's just a lot of fun.
I don't really watch a lot of the point of view videos, but I think I got to finally break down tonight and you pull that up on YouTube just to see it.
So you had mentioned that you booked all of this with a package. I'm going to assume that your tickets were part of that package. What kind of ticket did they include with that? Was it like, a park hopper where you could go between the studios and Disneyland Paris? And how many days did you get with that?
All of the tickets they sell to the hotel guests are park hoppers, which is kind of fun. So the studios, there's some fun rides there, but it's definitely not a park you need to spend the full day at. They automatically give a length of stay park ticket. And that's so it's in and out the entire trip.
Sometimes especially when you do like Run Disney packages in Florida, you tend to basically be paying like rack rate with base tickets. Did you find like the value for the whole race in your package to be like a good value then?
It was considerably less expensive than for me going to Florida. I mean, part of that for me is the exchange rate. I thought it was extremely reasonable, especially when I got the dining plan because the menu prices in Paris were pretty high. So that was kind of just a nice little added bonus there. And there was a discount at the time I booked. I believe I got 20% off my hotel price. So it worked out really well to do the package.
I think we all know the answer that's coming, but how was the food? And then going off of that, did you have any problems like finding good pre-race meals?
The food was rather disappointing because then you think you're going to France and you're going to be eating really great meals. Definitely, it wasn't great. I did have some troubles trying to find pre-race meals. I am the kind of person I want pasta or like a thin crust pizza before a race. I was able to get like a flatbread pizza from Earl of Sandwich, but in the restaurants they didn't have anything like a runner's meal. There was a lot of buffets, so those often offered some options. Again, though, they weren't great.
Well, I think we all know why the food was so bad. I mean, Remy's out there, he's out there shaking everybody's hand, representing out on the course. So he just wasn't in the kitchen cooking while you were there. He's too busy with the Run Disney weekend stuff.
I did go to Remy's restaurant, though. That was a good meal, but that was post-race.
Kind of thinking about that. So was there stuff open in the morning before the race, or did you have to have stuff in your room ahead of time?
No, it was nice things because my meal plan included a buffet breakfast. So the restaurant in the hotel was open and it was just full of runners. They didn't have anything that was specific runner meals. I would expect kind of the basics like bagels, peanut butter. They just kind of had like eggs, bacon, not normally things I would eat before a race. I actually brought little packages of almond butter with me, which I was very happy I did that. So I was able just to make some toast in the morning and put that on it and grab a banana or two and away I go. But it was nice that they were open and there was food available and the whole restaurant was just full of the runners going out to the courses. I've
got Disneyland Paris half marathon site pulled up here. And the YouTube video that they've got set has got a runner with the 3 Aristocats. I'm sorry.
I have to go back just to do that. And I wanted a race photo with the Cheshire Cat. It's the only park that has the Cheshire Cat as a costumed character.
Was there any other characters out there that you don't normally see at Walt Disney World?
I saw Moana, which I don't think I've seen Moana often at Disney World. I saw Mulan, and she was in her warrior costume. Stitch was out with Angel. I don't think I've ever seen Angel in Florida. Esmeralda, but I think I've started to see Esmeralda more in Florida during the races. I think I heard rumor that Quasimodo was out, but I didn't see him.
That would be kind of cool to see Quasimodo. Have you ever seen Quasimodo, Lake?
Yes. Typically, well, I don't want to say typically, and it happened. People were like, I didn't see him. But a lot of times when the 10Ks run through Epcot now, Quasimodo and Esmeralda have been out in the Paris section, and they'll switch out, I think, with Marie typically. Another
character stuff that's really good is they had the Phantom and the Bride from Phantom Manor out during the half marathon course.
That's cool.
Oh, I like that. I would have had to stop for that one there.
That was one of my photo stops.
Well, it sounds like a great weekend overall, value for the package you had, and then just kind of the experiences a little bit different than Walt Disney World, but it's kind of neat to just do something different, especially in a different country. What tips would you have, Andrea, for people that, kind of thinking back on it, that are looking to maybe plan this in 2022 or beyond?
I think just realize that you are going to get the Run Disney experience, but it's going to be different than what you're getting in Florida. It is definitely a smaller scale. Also, make sure you check your shirt sizes, because a lot of people were kind of surprised by that. And I think just not to be afraid of going to Paris to do this. All the cast members spoke English. It was very easy to get by. I mean, the most difficult part is going to be getting from the airport to Disneyland Paris, but even there's buses to take you there. So I think just don't be afraid to go and just do it.
Anything else, Blake?
I do. So obviously in America or in the US, racing really isn't that well known unless you're doing like Boston or New York or even Chicago to an extent. People don't really know or care. But from what I've heard in Europe is like people actually know that these events are going on. And if you say like at the airport, oh, I'm running, X, Y, or Z race, people are going to know and be like, oh, that's really awesome. I've just heard that like there's a lot more kind of support for these races from kind of local crowds. Did you find that to be true at all?
It's hard to say with Disneyland Paris because you're in the Disney bubble when you're there. I think afterward, because I did travel around a little bit after leaving Disneyland, and I told people that, oh yeah, I just ran the races, and Disneyland, they're like, oh, there's a half marathon there. So I think that specifically, they're not as aware that Run Disney in Europe. This is kind of another tangent, but I did go to Berlin afterwards I was supposed to run the Berlin Marathon, and there it was much more. Everyone's there. They're excited for it. A lot of people just out and ready for the race.
I remember we were in Germany. We actually landed the day, and got to the hotel in the morning, the day the Berlin Marathon ran several years ago, and remember watching it on TV. I mean, they had the entire race on TV from start to finish with commentators and everything. And that's something other than the Olympics. I don't think we get that down here in the US, do we? Like,
we actually do get some, but if you're not like,
okay, so maybe I'm missing it.
You wouldn't know. Well, like, obviously the Olympics were postponed, but you could watch most of the trials on TV, but that's not really widely known. Like Katie and I watched the marathon Olympic trials, which was super cool. And it was super interesting to watch, but people don't know that that's happening if you don't know what's happening.
I'm going to have to show you because they have done the Olympic trials up here at the University of Oregon. And they've recently redone the field, which, do you know who Pre is by any chance? Do you remember?
Yeah, I know Prefontaine.
Yeah, Prefontaine. So where he ran, and they tore down the old stadium and they put up this new stadium, and it looks like something from Europe. I mean, it's just like 21st, 22nd century cool. It looks like there's no way you could not be fast running on this track, just the way the stadium looks. I know that sounds weird, but I was looking at it, I was like, man, it just makes you want to run fast. So I'll have to send you some pictures of that because it's kind of cool. I know that they've had the Olympic trials down there, and we're hoping to go next time. So, well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, Andrea. Thank you for this topic. It's something that I know I've been interested in. It's definitely on our bucket list. And hopefully once the races start going again, we'd love to get over there and experience what you experienced. Any final thoughts, Blake?
Let's plan on 2023 maybe.
Well, thanks again, Andrea. All the best to you. I guess we forgot to ask, what's next for you? I mean, hopefully once the borders open back up and everything else, what's next in your plans?
Well, if the borders open, I'm heading down to Disney World in November. And if not in November, hopefully May. And hopefully finally get myself on a Disney cruise boat.
Well, I hope that works out for you. You said the Fantasy, right?
Hopefully going on the Fantasy at the end of April.
Oh my God. Could you imagine your first cruise on the Fantasy like?
That's one of our ones that it got canceled for us. We were supposed to be on it in June, but I have yet to be on that one.
Definitely a bucket list cruise for a lot of people. And you're starting off with that one, hopefully. Once again, Andrea, thank you so much. All the best to you up in Canada there. And we look forward to hopefully catching up and seeing you at one of the future Run Disney races.
Thank you.
And thanks, Blake, for coming on and helping me out today. Sure do appreciate it. And if people want to get in touch with you, you got an awesome YouTube channel over at MouseGen. Why don't you take a little bit of time and tell people how they can connect with you and Katie?
Yeah. So like you said, YouTube is kind of our big focus right now. It's just MouseGen, mouse like Mickey Mouse, no space, GEN. So if you go ahead and subscribe over there, when Run Disney races are running, we do tons of different Run Disney content. And we have a whole series of like Run Disney 101 and that sort of thing, race reviews, race vlogs. And then going on the Disney cruise side, we have all sorts of kind of like ship tours and ship vlogs and that sort of thing as well. And then you can also follow us on Instagram, which is mouse.gen. And then Facebook is MouseGen. But really, YouTube is where we do all of our posting.
You guys have got some just great videos, all the Run Disney stuff, and especially the Disney Cruise Line stuff, because there's not a lot of, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm missing them, but I haven't seen a lot of the videos that you guys have where you go through the cabins and everything like that. So definitely go out and check Blake and Katie's channel over at MouseGen and click that subscribe button. Once again, Blake, thanks for helping out today. I really appreciate you sitting in for Chris and Christy, and we look forward to talking with you as well soon.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
All right, take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers, guys.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Andrea for coming on and sharing her experiences as she traveled over to Paris, France in 2019 and experienced all the Run Disney races at Disneyland Paris. And congratulations once again, Andrea, for completing all the Run Disney races in 2019. Just an amazing feat. Well, as we are in 2021 looking at Run Disney right now, most of the races in 2020 were virtual. 2021, kind of the same thing. The summer virtual series sold out. So still a lot of demand for Run Disney, even in the virtual space of things. But we just found out that the Boston Marathon will be running. They announced it with a lot of restrictions. So we're not sure when Run Disney will start back up again, but let's hope that they do. I know that a lot of people out there, myself, Blake, and Chris, and everybody here at the podcast included, we miss being able to see a lot of you out at the parks while we're out there running, and just such a positive experience for everybody who's been out to Run Disney experience those races. And speaking of Blake, I'd like to give a huge shout out for him coming on and helping us out with the podcast this week. He and Katie are our Run Disney experts, and you can find out more from them over at their YouTube channel, MouseGen, MouseGen. Go over there and check it out and subscribe to their channel for a lot of fun videos with Run Disney, time in the parks, and also a bunch of videos when they've been out cruising with Disney Cruise Line as well. Well, if you've enjoyed our shows and you know somebody else who would enjoy this show as well, we sure would appreciate it if you'd pass it along. Word of mouth goes a long ways. Also, if you have time, you go over to iTunes and leave us an iTunes review. That helps us get a little bit better known in the Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, and the Run Disney podcasting community. And we want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. Each and every month, they help bring the show out to you on a weekly basis, and we do appreciate their support every month. If you would like to learn a little bit more about our Patreon program, you can go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Well, as we move through May here, summer is coming fast, and on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL podcast, we want to wish you the best as you're planning those summer vacations. We look forward to hearing what each and every one of you are out experiencing and doing this summer, and look forward to interacting either on Twitter, Facebook, or over on Instagram. Well, once again, we'd like to thank you for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.